Okay, so I'd like to start at the beginning. Where did you grow up, and who was in your family when you were young?
Oh, that's really the beginning. Hello, everyone, by the way. I can't see you because it's like just a bright light, but I don't care enough about gender, by the way, to come out in this weather, so I'm very impressed that everyone's here. I grew up in Elizabeth, which is in Adelaide, which, if you've seen the movie Snowtown, that's basically, that's Elizabeth. That's where I grew up. I grew up in Snowtown.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I tell people that in Hollywood, and after they've seen the movie, they look at me very strangely, like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like,
I've been to that town.
Yeah, yeah.
But, so Elizabeth is like near it, or is
no, it is. I mean, it's its sister town.
Right.
So,
okay.
yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
And family, mother,
So
father,
family,
sisters?
single mother, Italian family. My mother was born in Italy. I have an Italian passport. And my father was not really present from when I was born. And my single mother had 1-year-old twins when my twin and I were born. My twin died at birth. And yeah, so grew up with this, you know, very Italian family in a kind of housing commission house in Elizabeth with my single mother, who's amazing. And yeah, that's kind of where I lived until I was 17, until I finished high school.
So, unlike me, who was born with a foot in the industry, how did
Or
you...
two.
Or two.
No, I'm
yeah. yeah.
You're brilliant friends.
Yeah, slid on in there, didn't I? How did you find your way into the industry? And do you remember the moment when you thought, God, I want to be in that world?
Yeah, I mean, I was always interested in the arts. Like when I went to this, you know, I always think that the people that can influence you in life, you know, you kind of least expect. Like I just had a couple of teachers at high school who changed my perspective and kind of opened up my world. And I went to a pretty rough high school, but it did have a music program, and we did plays. And I was very interested in. I started my life wanting to be an actress. Clearly was not successful at that. My friend Susie's here, she'll tell you I applied to every drama school, I got rejected. But I was in plays when I was younger, from like a very young age. And I had a music teacher, Mr. Marino, who, you know, kind of ran the school plays, and a wonderful drama teacher, Joy Fletcher. And they really kind of, you know, they just created an environment where we felt we could do anything. And we took our plays on the road, and we went to Melbourne. It was, you know, that was my first trip out of Adelaide. And one of the things that happened actually in that period of my life was a documentary crew came to the school. And I'll tell you who it is because it's kind of impressive. They made a series of movies called Pop Movie. And one of them was about this kind of impoverished area that I grew up in, and this music program. And the director was Ray Argall, and the cinematographer was Mandy Walker, who's now one of the great Australian cinematographers. And the producer was Christina Pozan, who kind of became like a lifelong mentor to me. I was 12 years old.
Wow.
And that's the first exposure that I had to film. And I stayed in contact with her. And she kind of became a mentor to me. And yeah,
well, I've got that question later on.
Yeah,
so
yeah. So
that's interesting because my dad, when his moment of I want to be in that world, he was studying to be an actuary when he was younger than 27. And his mate said to him, let's go down to the drama club and see if there's any hot chicks down there. And so he went down that afternoon, and his mate didn't turn up. There weren't any girls that he was interested in, but he got the opportunity to stand up on stage and say some lines. And that was the moment that he went, holy shit, this is amazing, this feeling. And he was probably slightly better at it than you, the acting thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So kind of
clearly, he's got some talent.
But yeah, no, interesting how people
and
kind
that
of find their
wasn't,
way.
I didn't decide at that moment, by the way, because one of the things I tell young people, which is, I mean, I knew I loved the arts, but I did a bit of acting, and I would go work at an arts festival, and I really wanted to be Jana Wendt. Like, I wanted to be a 60 Minutes reporter. That's what I really wanted to be, and I kind of still do. That was what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a journalist. That's kind of,
So
was like what I aspired to when I was younger.
To university then?
I did go to university, but not to study journalism. No. I went to university and started a law degree, which that's, of course, what you do. You want to be in the arts. But I dropped out after 6 months because...
Oh, okay. And then, how did you... What was your Like, how did you get into like the first sort of like bit where you went, okay, I'm kind of in?
So I went to Melbourne Law School, and it was a very interesting time in my life because I loved the idea of being at university. Like I still fantasize about college life, and because I think that would be fun. And but I won't lie, I felt very adrift. I was studying economics law, and I was probably the poorest person in that faculty, and I didn't feel like I belonged, quite frankly. And so I dropped out, went back to Adelaide, and decided that I'd study arts. That felt more me. And so I decided to study Italian, French, and Spanish at the same time. And I literally confused myself so much that I just dropped out. But it was back in Adelaide that I started. I kind of became involved in various theatre groups and did a bit of acting again. I never gave up. And I just kind of exposed myself. And then around that time, when I was very young, I met the playwright Stephen Saul, and I became friendly with him. And he said, you should write. You have a gift. And so I applied to the National Young Playwrights Conference, and I got accepted. I wrote a play, which again is shocking because I'm not a good writer either. These are all my first career paths. But it was kind of that really made me realise that I wanted to do something, and I kind of in the dramatic field. And it was Stephen who then introduced me to Dion Beebe and his wife Anju Moon, who had a commercial company. And that was my first job in the kind of film business, which was very quickly I was producing commercials at a pretty young age. Okay. That was my first kind of
And so when you found producing, did you kind of go, okay, this is the direction that I want to go in?
Yeah, I loved it. I definitely felt I had a kind of natural kind of talent for it because I'm pretty bossy, and I just really I found it very exciting. It wasn't until I kind of made my first. I was working with a commercial director, Brendan Young, at the time, and we decided to fund a short film. It wasn't until I made my first short film that I realised that's what I wanted to do. I didn't think that I wanted to make commercials. Right. It's a full-time job, but I loved making that short film.
And when did you? At what point did you? Because you went to Hollywood pretty quick. Or you went to New York first, didn't you?
Yeah. So so I went to New York. I've said a lot about this in when I've done interviews, but it's kind of true. Breakups have taken me to every country that I've lived in the world. There's a lot to be said for that. So I was heartbroken. Went to New York with no money. And I was working in a restaurant, and my only friends were Gia Carides and Anthony LaPaglia, and she was working on an independent movie, and I was like, that's why I'm a big fan of mentorships and attachments, because really I believe that's how you start your career. And I basically said to the director of that movie, I'll do anything, I'll work for free, and I'll work at night.
How old were you at this point?
I was 25 probably.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I just worked for nothing. And he'd raised all the money himself. He'd hired a producer. They had a little falling out. And then he gave me a producer credit at the end because I just stuck around and just stuck in there and kind of did everything. Yeah. I mean, I did everything from product placement to drive people to say, I just did everything. Yeah. Which is just kind of how I believe you learn as well.
Yeah, which is
they warned me about
what I was going to ask. What was that time like for you when you were just sucking it up and working for nothing and
it was great.
Cutting your teeth? Yeah.
It was great. I mean, that's the other advice I kind of give to young people, is just expose yourself to as much as you can, get as much experience. Don't let money ever drive you. It does not drive me still to this day. If you work in a creative business, I don't think it can be your motivating factor. But I do think you should, you don't know. No one knows when they come out of school at 18 really what they want to do. You have to kind of expose yourself to various businesses and, and then it will become clear, I think, at some point on your path. Yeah. So
what took you to LA?
So after New York, I felt great. I got this credit on this movie, and I was like, I've produced a movie, and this is amazing. And I came back to Australia, and I just really wanted to do it here. I mean, I never wanted to live anywhere but Australia. And by the way, I still don't. It is, trust me, I've lived all over the world. It's still the greatest place in the world to live. Yeah, it is. By far. And so I kind of started making commercials again to kind of make a living, and I'd become friendly with Robert Connolly because I'd loved The Boys, that movie The Boys. For me, it was just like, it really kind of had a great kind of effect on me. And he called me one day and said, this guy's got this script, Better Than Sex, he wants me to produce it, but I don't have time, and I thought you might be good. And he just became a kind of mentor for me, and kind of guided me through what it was like to make a kind of under $1 million movie. And it was just the greatest experience from like start to finish. You know, it was just me and Jonathan Stetsky who wrote and directed it. And
what was the budget?
It was $900,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Screen New South Wales, Courtney. Screen Australia, Graham didn't give us any money. But Screen New South Wales got that movie made, I'd like to say. Sorry, that was before your time, Graham. And I produced it with a guy called Frank Cox, who'd run a big distribution company, and he really wanted to produce something, and he had a lot of kind of international contacts. But it was just, again, one of those experiences, like I made the curtains for the production. You know, you just do everything. My friend was the caterer, he was a chef, he moved down from Melbourne. It was great.
I'm still in that
situation. Yeah, no, it's great though. It's great. I wish all my movies were still, well, not quite as low budget, but it was really that movie that, and really because of the support that kind of Screen Australia and other people like that offered, that, you know, they funded me to go to Toronto with the movie. And it was at Toronto that I met Anthony Minghella. And he, you know, we just kind of met. A friend of mine had put all Samuel Beckett's plays, made them into movies with these amazing directors. And so we were just socialising. It's the good thing about film festivals, you actually do meet a lot of people. You know, you can kind of meet great collaborators. And I just met Anthony, and I thought, oh my God, who's this amazing man? And this friend of mine was like, he's looking for someone to run his company. And I was like, oh, it's not going to be me. You know, I mean, I didn't think you could get paid to like actually like work in the film business. I was just, I was coming back to Australia. The movie was going to open, and I was going to make another movie. And so he kept saying, oh, you know, you're such a beautiful, polite man. And he was like, you should come see me when you're in London. And I was like, yeah. And I went off to, you know, other film festivals and came back to Australia and didn't really follow. And then the movie got into the London Film Festival, and I did find myself in London. I called him, and then we met, and then they asked me to read a book. I'm like, read a book? They read this book and tell us what you think. And so I did, and then he was like, you know, I really, you know, I think you're great, and you should go meet my partner in LA, Sydney Pollack. And I was like, great, like, where's my ticket? You might have read, I've talked about this story a lot because I didn't have any money still, of course. And I was like, well, aren't you going to pay for them? I'm like, no. And so I had to borrow $1,000 from a guy I was barely dating. And I don't think I ever paid him back. And Susie knows all this. And I went to LA, and that was a pretty profound moment. I mean, I don't know if people know Sydney Pollack and Anthony Minghell's movies, but these two were like, these are the best of fucking men and the best of filmmakers. And so I fly to LA, and I've never been to LA. And I drive onto the studio lot, and I'm like, this is like a Robert Altman movie. This is crazy. And then you meet Sydney Pollack, and you're like, you're really in a movie at that point, because he's just, you know, like a legend, and he's obviously a very well-known actor. And so he kind of was, you know, like telling me I had the job like in the room, and I came back to Australia and I was like, what's happening? And then they called me and they were like, we want to offer you a job, and can you move to London and in 4 weeks? And I had a European passport, and I was like, sure, like, you're going to pay me? And that was my big, huge career break. And I worked for them for 5 years, and it was that was, you know.
In London? In
London. But I came to LA a lot. That was kind of my exposure, because they had an office in LA, so I would go back and forth quite a bit.
Because I wanted to, because before I went to LA, before I done pilot season, I've done that for the last 4 years now. I always thought of it as this place, like it scared me so much. I avoided going there for so long because I thought this is this place where people go if they're successful, if they're really talented, and like, you know, I just didn't believe in myself enough at that age to go there. But now it's a completely different thing because you know, it's sort of like a second home to me. What was like Hollywood in your eyes before you'd gone there, and what is the truth of it?
It's exactly as I thought. I mean, it is kind of what I thought it was. I mean, I still drive down Sunset Boulevard and I'm like,
That's true. Sunset Boulevard is
do you know what I mean?
amazing.
It's slightly surreal because it's like, wow, it's just like, and it is a place where the main business is making content. It's kind of a pretty crazy thing. But obviously, as I kind of spent more time there, you know, once you get comfortable and you start to meet people, you become less intimidated by, you know, the kind of environment. And I really think the good thing about, they love Australians. They, you know, I mean, who doesn't? My husband's American, and he's always like, he comes to Australia and he's like, people are so nice to me here, you know, because like, they're not nice to all Americans and the rest of the world. And I think what they love about Australians is that we do kind of have, you know, we really learn, we don't, like, people say to me, what does a producer do? And I'm like, well, it depends who you ask, you know. But when you kind of train as a producer here, or you train as a cinematographer, you train as a sound recorder, you really do kind of do it all, you know, because you have to. And so, we also have a very strong work ethic. My experience with Australians is like there's a huge, you know, strong work ethic. And Americans love that, you know. They appreciate it.
To learn, to do auditions in LA, you always get the feedback. Aussies always go in learning their lines, having learnt their lines. Americans have never learnt their lines. And Americans just love how honest we are and blunt and funny. Just, we do have a good rap in the States, it's true. The industry has its ups and downs. It's hard, you know, like you talked about being impoverished and all that sort of stuff. Has there been a time was there ever a time in your career where you thought, it's too hard, I can't do this anymore, I'm just going to go to university and get, you know, a degree and do a proper job?
In acting?
Yeah.
I still. Not really, because, I mean, I make a lot of jokes about, like, when you've grown up poor, you're not afraid to be, I mean, that's the good news. I'm always willing to take risks because I can live on I always say, you say this in America, no one understands, but I always say, I can live on the smell of an oily rag, which, you know, I think it's an Australian thing, unless I made it up.
No, you didn't. It's definitely
you know, so I was always like, I think the film business could implode at any second, and I'll just go waitress or something, you know, I mean, it's all fine. Like, I like people, I like food, I'm fine to do that. I mean, I'm serious, I'm not scared of it, which I think is like really liberating to like not be scared, because it makes you make kind of better choices. There was definitely times where, for me, it was a decision like, do I go work for someone? Do I go, you know, because in Hollywood you can work for people and you can go get jobs in development and even starting my own company. I mean, it's not been, we've had success, but it's not like these movies make all the money and producers get all the money. It's not how it works in Hollywood. You know, you have to kind of build up your quote, and then you have to kind of have multiple successes to start like really getting back end in your movies and all that stuff. So, you know, the truth about producing is like, she's like, what I kind of always say to people is like, you don't get paid unless you're making a film. You know, most of the work producers do is unpaid. Most of it, like the development, the finding the writers, working with the writers, finding a director, all of the stuff, all of the soft prep. So, you know, you can make a living if you make a film a year. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like, you know, it's what we've tried to create, and I think we're probably at that stage now, is like, you know, we have 30 projects in development.
Right, wow.
And I think now with TV just being such a boom time for TV, that people aren't all just getting into TV because they don't want to just make movies. You kind of have to as a matter of necessity, I think, in every field, no matter what your vocation.
What's what does that mean, an exclusive production deal in broadcast television with ABC?
Yeah, so that means that, I know, ABC, I know. So we tried very hard in our company to not take, to pay for our staff and the office. Like, I didn't want to take a deal in film because that would mean that, you know, you would have to kind of service one place. And we have projects all over the place.
By taking a deal, you mean you're locked
by taking a deal, so I didn't want to take a deal in that. So we took a deal in network TV, which is which is fine because we have a deal with a place that we can only sell broadcast pilots to those like kind of 4 networks.
Oh, okay.
Which is totally fine.
Right.
But we can still sell our movies and cable to anyone.
Okay.
So it gives you a lot of freedom,
Right,
but still helps you kind of, you know, fund your TV exec and like.
What do you think is the main difference between working in America and working here? Like the difference between, I guess, the industries, aside from the obvious difference?
The industries are very different, and I'll bring it back to the kind of, because we are to the gender conversation, because I've been part of. I'm so excited about what's happening in Australia and what they're able to do here with these initiatives. I was part of a think tank in America with an amazing women. I mean, everyone from like Genji Cohen, who created the Orange is the New Black, to like, you know, Kathy Shulman, who's the head of production for STX, who's the head of women in film in America. And, you know, there was like 100 people. We got together for 2 days and we talked, you know, it was like a think tank, like what can we do to kind of move the needle for women in entertainment. And one of the things that it's very tough in America because the industry is so big, because it is controlled, you know, for the most part by studios and, you know, people who finance movies. What we found in our kind of discussions is it's quite hard to institute kind of mandated quotas. You know, you would have to literally convince every single company financing movies that there had to be quotas. So we kind of tried to identify for ourselves, like what else can we do? And one of the things, and I was talking to your mum about this recently, who directed one of my favourite films a few years ago.
Oh, she's here.
Beautiful
actually.
Kate,
She'll
I know.
be loving that.
And one of the things that we talked about, yes, we love you, Rachel. But one of the things I was talking to Rachel about, which I think is something that actually exists very much here too, is it's hard for anyone to get into the business, obviously including young women. But where we found the big problems in America were the mid-career women, how do you make your second film? How do you make your third film? And the huge like years that went by between when women made their films, as opposed to men who kind of seemed to get a bigger kind of boost off their first movie. And obviously that's been talked about a lot. And so one of the things that we kind of identified that we had to do, because what happens in Hollywood is there's lists, right? There's like, okay, who are the 10 directors on your list? And we all do it. I make lists every day for like the 10 projects that I have. And so everyone's always like, well, there's no, you know, I don't know, there's only like Catherine Bigelow and, you know, I mean, who else? You know, like, so those conversations happen a lot in Hollywood. And so one of the things we talked a lot about is like, I mean, the Hollywood Reporter just published a list of 100 female directors. And I got to say, I was shocked how many I had forgotten. Alison Anders, you know, obviously people like Jane Campion, but like amazing women who had made a movie 10 years ago and hadn't made another movie. And so even just by publishing that list and by people kind of circulating those lists and by making sure that the studio people who are making those decisions, they will move those names to the kind of from the bottom to the top of the list, because it is so much about is like putting it at the front of your brain, including for people like me who are making those lists. And so I do think that the problems need to be attacked slightly differently there. But what I really believe is, you know, where did they say they did it? In Sweden? Where was the Courtney you said? I think Sweden has done a really good job of kind of quality. And I think Australia is one of the places that people really look to. I mean, Hollywood has such a kind of keen eye on Australia. And I think anywhere that those initiatives happen and we start to see real change, it will have a big impact kind of everywhere. And, you know, there's a lot of really smart women and men, because we made men part of our conversation in America, which I think is so crucial. You know, it's like many men run these organizations. You have to make them part of the conversation. You know, I mean, this is not like, you know, it's always a very difficult thing because, you know, you don't want men to feel like they can't then get elected in the industry. That said, there is a huge imbalance that we need to address. And one of the things that, honestly, I said this to someone earlier, I was shocked how bad it still was in Australia because I grew up on Gillian Armstrong and Jane Campion, and like that's, my perspective was like all Australian directors were women. Really? You know, I mean, all the movies that inspired me, that I loved. And not just made by women, but like had complex women at the center of them, you know. And so I was quite shocked that the statistics were that bad, to be honest. And so I'm really glad to kind of see that like these kind of initiatives are happening. And so obviously, sorry, go back to, so for me, We haven't, it obviously has been a part of our business to put women behind the camera, but to be really honest, my main focus for this first 4 years has been putting women in our stories, because that statistic is the most abysmal statistic. I mean, it's like something like 18% of protagonists in film and television are women. And if you go to diversity, it's like less. Hispanic women, it's something like 3%. I mean, and Hispanic women make up 20% of the population in America. So these are pretty horrendous statistics. And so for me, culturally, I feel so strongly that, you know, I want my daughter to see women be a little, you know, be whatever, just be dark, be light, be an astronaut, be a soldier, work on Wall Street, whatever it is. I felt very strongly that one of my kind of jobs is to make sure that, you know, young men and women see different representations of women, because it's pretty bad out there in terms of the kind of quality. Well, you're an actress, you know. You have to start, and that's what happened with Reece. It's like there was just no roles,
Yeah,
so she had to take the kind of power into her own hands.
I mean, I guess I see it on the screens, but I don't see how. I guess I don't see what scripts or how many auditions my male friends are going for. I guess.
Let me tell you, a lot.
A lot more.
Not only that, I mean, I can't tell you. We just made this series, and it has 6 women at the centre, and I'm very proud of it, because it's really, I mean, it's like kind of, it's written by, the novel's written by a woman. It's these 6 women at the centre, and it was quite hard to cast the men, you know, because in my experience, I've found it actually that the men, particularly of a certain age, they are working a lot, particularly if they have some kind of, you know, name value in America.
Yeah.
They're working because they have a lot of opportunities. There's not a coincidence, you know. It's definitely.
Have you how much have you felt being a woman in this industry has hindered or helped your, you know, being a producer?
Yeah, I've never felt hindered, I suppose.
Are you aware of it? Is it something that comes into your...
I'm aware of, like, I didn't certainly feel hindered here, I have to say. And I'm also like, keep looking at my friend Susie. My girlfriends are all like really creative. You know, Susie's an amazing singer. Susie DiMarcio, amazing singer. Our other best friend is Mary Kousas, who's an amazing writer comedian. So I've just been surrounded by these amazingly strong creative women. So we've always been of the kind of thing that like we can do anything, and we can obviously. So I've definitely felt like in terms of Hollywood, you kind of. Like where a male producer might be given an opportunity because he has a maid or something, oh, you know, come and produce this movie. I definitely have to like, well, I've got to find the story and bring the story. And so I feel like I've had to kind of, you know, put it together a little more to kind of get those opportunities.
Yeah.
But I think now people see us as, we don't use the kind of modifier, we're female producers, we're producers. And, you know, you should hire us to do any movie. But I'm, you know, so I'm pretty optimistic or stupid, or I don't know. It definitely hindered my acting career, being a woman, or a bad actress.
Yeah, I feel like there's something just innately in men. Like men just seem to have this confidence
Yeah, no, confidence
that women
is
lack,
Yeah.
and that's
we talk about confidence a lot in our. For me, it's one of the big things, and I see it in. I think it starts in the classrooms. I think boys put their hand up more.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed from the beginning of my career is like, even if a man's never written anything, he'll have written his first script and he'll say to me, "Read this. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
You're going to love it. It's literally the best script ever written." And I'll have a girl come up to me and she'll be like, "Oh my God, would you read my script? I think it's okay." And I do feel that, and I do it. I still say, "Oh my God, I'm lucky. Can you, you know?" And so I do think in our culture, in our classrooms, we need to like just, you know, from when girls are like, we got to encourage them to like kind of speak up. And I do think, like, the other thing we talked about this think tank is like, do we need to be, you know, doing a training program to teach women how to pitch themselves better, you know, because you can, what I've always believed is like, I can be convinced by anyone in a room. Like if someone pitches me and they, you know, they're compelling, that is not like a big go to pitch me either. Stasha made a joke, but it is kind of true. Happens in America too. But you know what I mean? Like it's like, so I do think that being able to sell yourself in that room and kind of convince someone that you're the best person to direct a film or shoot a film or write a film is part of the business. And that it is, you know, something that we could be kind of helping.
Who in your life are your big cheerleaders? Like who, when you're up against it, cheers you on? Because I think
my girlfriends, I do have an amazing. We have like this very large, loud collective of women, and John Paulson, who's like the only boy, but like so he's like kind of a girl. But I do have a big collection of kind of women friends, and I think your peer group and the people that you know, and I know, you know, I've seen a lot of this in Australia. I talked to the girls from Aquarius who started that, you know, it's basically a collective of like not just producers but mothers who can help and support each other and all those things. And I mean, I think that's amazing to create those kind of groups because, you know, we all need that help. And my husband, who's kind of if I said he was a bit of a girl and he saw this, he'd be very upset. But he, you know, he's amazing and a great cheerleader.
Is he a producer?
He's a producer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you work together ever?
We do. We have you know, we work together a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Not so much that, you know, cause some problems, but no. Yeah, we do work together, and you know, he does a lot of business stuff for me too, and yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Let's just see if I've got any other questions before. What are you working on now, and what are you most excited about in the future? I'm excited about a lot of things. I mean, it's good when you kind of have built up, you know, a slate. Like I feel like there's lots of things that are ready to make. I'm really excited about the series that we just made. It's really, it's more than just having these women at the centre. It's a real conversation about women and mothers and who you know, these different types of women, and it's really exciting, I think, and like hopefully something we haven't seen. How do we see that?
Before. It's going to be on HBO.
Okay.
HBO is going to sometime next spring. We've just seen the first 2 episodes, and it's 7 hours. And we produced it with Nicole Kidman as well. We kind of optioned the book together. And then that same novelist, we just optioned her new book. She's this amazing, I don't know if everyone knows Leanne Moriarty, but she's Australian. She lives in Pymble. And, but she's one of the biggest selling novelists in America. Her books all are on the bestseller list for like a long time. She's very successful.
Wow.
And
she must be feeling very lucky that you've discovered her talent.
Yeah, I think so. You know, her book, all her books are under option to different people,
Right,
different, very, you know, kind of well-known people. But I think this is the first one to be made, and I think we showed it some of it to her yesterday, and she's really excited. Yeah, I think it's great. The way some things come together just so kind of fast and organically, and Wild was a bit like that, and this has been like that. And what else am I excited about? I'm excited about lots of things. We have another book that I think is really special called Luckiest Girl Alive. I'll do a really bad job pitching it, but it's just this, and the novelist adapted it, and she's got an amazing voice. And then lots of other things, and you know, I'm excited about definitely TV and kind of all the opportunities that offers. I just optioned this wonderful Australian book called The Dry.
The what?
It's called The Dry.
Okay.
It's doing very well here.
Oh.
She won the Premier's Award. She was a journalist, and her first novel, Jane Harper, her name is, it's set in the Victorian outback, and I'm really excited about that.
Will you make that here?
We'll make that here, yeah. My goal in life is just to make everything here.
Really?
Yeah. Ideally. I mean, I want to do what Baz Luhrmann does, or Jane Campion, just sit time. Yeah, but can't do that. Can't do everything here right now. But yeah, that's what I would like to do.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Bruna.
Sasha. You're the best host. Thank you, Matilda. Oh, it's very dark.